Okay, in this section, we're going to describe what a population pyramid is and why it's used and how I'm going to use it in my particular argument. Okay, a population pyramids and the demographic transition model. A population pyramid, a graph that shows the population of a country according to sex and cohort. These graphs can help predict future population trends. A cohort, an age group made up of 5 years used in describing a population pyramid. An expansive population, countries with a high birth rate but a rapidly declining death rate. Stationary population pyramids, countries where both birth and death rates are low. We're going to show you what those are. Demographic transition model, a graph outlining a country's natural increase as a result of birth and death rates, therefore showing changes in population as a result of a country's economic development. The model is based on the changing population of Western Europe during industrialization. So this is going to give us an overview of idea of how the Industrial Revolution changed how a population looked and the components of a population, not only pre-industrial but over the different phases of our modern era. Okay, this is the basic components of a population pyramid. Of course, we have pink for the girls and we have blue for the guys. Okay, each stair step or block of a population pyramid represents 5 years in a population. Like the bottom one naturally is from birth to 4 years, and so on and so forth. Those are called the cohorts. You can see how the age ascends upward as a cohort. Each side going from the center outward it can be either the percentage or the number of people in each particular segment. So from zero, this is 0. The 0 point goes out to the left. It shows you the number of men, and from 0 to right, it shows you the number of women in each particular cohort. This is an example of a population pyramid. This particular example is a pre-industrial population pyramid. This is a fair example of what life was like for pretty much most of the agricultural age. This is a fair indication of what a pre-industrial population pyramid looks like. As you can see, this particular population pyramid goes into the number of people. Could be in millions, it could be in thousands. It just depends on what the chart says. But like I said, from the center outward, it shows you a number. These are the particular cohorts, 0 to 5, 5 to 9. You can see ascending into the later ages of a population. We're going to look at a bunch of these as part of our examination into what populations look like. Okay, this is the demographic cycle according to Carol Quigley. What you see as far as a population pyramid and the demographic transition follows this this particular chart almost to a T. Like you say in the what he calls a primitive society or the pre-industrial society, birth rates are high, death rates are also high, and the numbers are stable. And with the age distribution to mostly people young below the age of 18 years old, which would contend or which would agree with what we saw in the previous section when we're talking about an average lifespan. Here in the next section is what he calls the childbearing or the arms bearing cohort, or the phase of a demographic cycle in a country. We call that, they call that the transition phase. Birth rate is high, death rate is falling, the numbers or the population are rising, and most of your population is between the working ages of 18 and 45, which is the prime adult years. This is the completed industrial cycle. And remember, these numbers that Quigley came up with are 1960 or in the 60s. This is pre our modern era. So these numbers have actually started to have actually changed. And I call this the restabilized. In other words, after you go through your transition phase and you complete your industrial phase, this is what you look like. You should look like your birth rate's falling. This is what we've seen, that your death rate is very low, and your numbers are stable because now your birth rate and your death rate match again. And this is the geriatric or the declining phase. This is what they call the post-industrial phase. You see a lot of this in Western Europe now. Your birth rate is low. Your death rate is rising, not because of illness, but because a lot of your people are dying naturally of old age. They're getting older. So when you have a lot of old people dying and there's not enough people to replace them, you get you get a falling population. You get a population contraction. And here are the modern 4 demographic transition phases. Now, a lot, these are to show the main 4 phases, and there is a 5th phase that we will investigate in a later section. That is right now what they call theory, because there's not enough evidence to prove that it is true just yet, because it hasn't been around long enough. But these are the 4 demographic transition cycles. You have the pre-industrial. Like I said, like in Quigley's chart, you have a high birth rate. You have a rapid fall in each upward age group due to high death rates, and you have a short life expectancy, which is something that agrees with the other section that we talked, the other previous charts about a low life expectancy in a pre-industrial society. You have a transitional phase where a country is just starting to industrialize. We now call these countries developing countries. You can see how the triangle smooths out on both sides, because your birth rate is still high because of modern sanitation in food and whatnot. You have a fall in death rate, and you have more people living into middle age and a slightly longer life expectancy. We're going to prove this not just through history, but through current demographics, something that we can actually look at outside of our industrial model that we see in the West. Okay, the stationary model, which I call the restabilization. You have the fully industrial model. You have declining birth rate. You have a low death rate. A lot of people living into old age, and this is what they called the zero population growth phase, where there are enough births to replace the low death rate at the top. And our fourth phase, which we call the post-industrial, the contraction phase, where you have a low death rate, a very low birth rate, and a low death rate, and higher dependency ratio, and where life expectancy, a much longer life expectancy for a greater and greater number of people. But the thing is, you don't have, it's unstable because you don't have enough births at the bottom to replace the people that are dying. And in our next section, we're going to go into these four and even the fifth demographic transition model, and we're going to use population pyramids to examine this.